peace process. In studio, I still have Dismas Mark Esbon as well as Wakili Kipchumba here. Dismas, let me just start with you. Can you perhaps attempt to tell us what this position is all about?
Well, obviously, the position is very clear that it's about IGAD and the Juba peace process. That is supposed to be monitoring progress and brief the IGAD presidents, which I think is a job he's going to be doing very well, given his institutional memory. But when you look at the structure, then you begin to worry whether or not he took the right decision. Because in the photos, when he went to meet with President Salva Kiir, he actually accompanied Monica Juma. It was not the other way around. So one would have expected that it was Monica Juma preparing talking points for Kalonzo Musyoka, that Kalonzo Musyoka would be the head of a delegation, but it was the other way around. And in my view, I think what Kalonzo probably missed at some stage is the opportunity of having a security man and a chase car to clear traffic for him. You know, traffic in Nairobi can be a bit crazy, especially if you've been in the cabinet for the longest time. You recall Kalonzo has been in the cabinet for almost 30 years, so he got into a crisis. But looking at Kenya from our selfish interest, Kalonzo is well positioned. That's where he's supposed to be doing diplomacy. However, it's going to create a crisis back at his village. And you know, he's referred to as a watermelon. And it seems the case that the watermelon is now about to start rotting if he's not very careful. So this watermelon must be taken back to the fridge, or maybe he plants it and then he recreates himself. But this scenario gives opportunities, so many opportunities to Kivuda Kibwana, Charity Ngilu, Enoch Wambua, or even Mtula Kilonzo to recreate themselves and take over the leadership of the Kamba community. Because that's really why he's holding strong, why he's holding forth. And even I've heard some of these panelists dismissing Kalonzo Musyoka that I mean, as an errand boy, he doesn't have much political capital. He's still king in this part of the world. In his woods, he's a king. But his absence from the local political space, as well as Raila Odinga, gives a unique opportunity to Musalia Mudavadi and Wetangula now to come and show us what they're made of. You know, right now, Musalia has been all over giving his intellectual contribution. But this is the time he needs now to mobilize resources and show all Kenyans that the race in 2022 is going to be between him and William Samoei Ruto. And I've seen here Esbon Awila give a sweeping statement which you cannot let go. Because he says the front runner in 2022 is William Samoei Ruto. I don't know on what parameters he's making that sweeping statement. Because if you don't challenge him, then the folks at home will begin to wonder, what was the basis of his statement? Maybe at some stage he'll give us the opportunity. But right now, Musalia Mudavadi has got this unique opportunity, and I've seen it covered in the newspaper. He has said he's not going to be anybody's errands boy. He's going to be loyal to the state and loyal to the president. I've not seen him indicate that he's going to be loyal to President Uhuru Kenyatta, but he's going to be loyal to the state and to the president. And one expects that he'll now rise to the occasion and show Kenyans what he's made of. Because for Raila Odinga and Kalonzo, I think President Kenyatta has crafted for them a very good exit strategy. And it seems to me that sections within State House and Jubilee who are creative thinkers, they've gone through the 48 rules of power and they've said, what is the easiest way to get Kalonzo and Raila out of the equation? You strike at the shepherd and the sheep scatter. So Uhuru decided to strike at Raila Odinga. Everybody now is running helter-skelter. Kalonzo now said, wait a minute, my brother Raila Odinga has got a chase car. Maybe I need to do the same. Now he's got a chase car. Maybe he's getting per diems. We've heard that MPs are getting per diems every weekend. So these are unique opportunities for anybody who thinks that there's a vacuum to come and fill it. Because if you don't do that, I mean, for how long are we going to be discussing about these unacceptable headlines, our leadership feeding us with poison? We should be discussing when are we going to complete the 9th stadium as promised by Jubilee. We should be asking ourselves, how come lately we don't have fundraisers? Then we say, okay, we have the answer. The Agenda 4 is a success. If somebody has got a liver complication, you don't need a fundraiser. If you want to do a church, the parishioners have got enough money because they have disposable incomes. We should be reviewing our parameters. We should be looking at leaders, not on the ability to give money at FINDROS, but on the intellectual contribution. Like, for instance, our leaders in Kenya, can they go and meet with the South Korean president or Singapore prime minister and have an intellectual intercourse? When they come out, when you sit in covered news, then you shout. When you land at Heathrow Airport as a Kenyan, you are proud that President Kenyatta has made a speech, Ruto has made a speech, Wetangula has made a speech, or Musalia has made a speech. When we were growing up and you were a young person then, when Robert Ouko made a speech at the International Forum, you'd say, wow, that's a eureka moment. But we are not supposed to be celebrating leaders because they're giving money or because they're launching bridges. Like where I come from in my village, a governor decides to launch a footpath and we break into a dance and song. When you see these 3 MPs here, they're complaining about maize scandals, we break into a dance and song. When are we going to host the World Economic Forum? When are we going to have Davos in Nairobi? Because the entire world is saying Kenya is a place to go. Now, those are the parameters that President Kenyatta must do and Raila Odinga must do as the shepherders. Because, you know, right now it's a foregone conclusion that President Kenyatta is not running and the probability of Raila running is almost 0 because the exit is very clear and Kalonzo, that one is now a foregone conclusion. Let's look at leaders based not on their bank balance, but on their IQ and Chapter 6 and Article 10.
Let me pick from the last thing you mentioned, which has everything to do with Kalonzo, because that's our discussion towards the end of this program. Mark, you've seen that new appointment of Kalonzo Musyoka. What does this mean for him, politically speaking? And we've had a lot of criticism coming out from his, backyard, that is from his wiper party, Muthama, as well as, Governor Kibwana, who have openly criticized Kalonzo Musyoka.
I will take 10 seconds to remind my good friend Dismas to really avoid becoming a Mudavadi apologist. It is not becoming. That said, Kalonzo Musyoka's appointment. I want you to remember the last thing Kalonzo Musyoka did in office. He was the head of a delegation that was known as shuttle diplomacy, okay? That means 2 things. It means that President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta and the Deputy President of this republic owe Kalonzo Musyoka a favor. Number 2, it is very clear that he was very competent in his shuttle diplomacy because it changed the AU's stance on the International Criminal Court. So as a diplomat, Kalonzo Musyoka, his watermelonness makes him a very good diplomat. And perhaps this is the career switch that he needs. But I want to disabuse the notion that Kenya is missing something, okay? I want Kenyans to think with me and think carefully that for the last 30 years, we've had Musalia Mudavadi, Kalonzo Musyoka, and others in and out of cabinet. I want them to ask themselves what significant changes, what significant achievements did they bring to this country that now we want them to do it again? That's my question. If you were married once and you got divorced, why do you want to go back to your spouse? What is it that you miss? When we divorced Musalia Mudavadi, Kalonzo Musyoka, and Raila Odinga in 2013, why would we want them back in 2022? We must of necessity then ask, what did they achieve for us? And my question is, did they achieve more of Golden Plug, Tokyo land cases, maize scandals, and things like that? Is that what they achieved? Or did they achieve a changed economy, a better economy, more roads for this country, a more peaceful country? Were they the architects of 2007? Is Raila Odinga innocent of 2007? These are the hard questions that we must ask ourselves as Kenyans. Because if you ask those hard questions, the rightful conclusion you must come to is our politicians be as handsome, as tall, as dark, as whatever as they may be, they may have outlived their usefulness, and we may want to consider an alternative path, because I can guarantee you, you elect the same people, you will get the same results. Kenya needs to wake up. Let me tell you, we need to begin to discuss people who have the IQ, the ideas, and the passion to change this country.
I think that alternative route, husband, is what Kenyans are yet to find up to this moment. And I'd like you to react to this new appointment, first of all, before we move on.
Well, I think it's interesting that from a presidential candidate to, an appointee of the president who is working under another appointee of the president, it's a situation that
interesting observation.
Communicates quite a lot, that President Uhuru Kenyatta must be a very powerful president right now, who has, amassed enough clout through his charm offensive that he has managed to bring everyone on board and given them something that they are comfortable when whatever he has given them, just like Dismas says, looks like a silent exit strategy, which whether they agree with or not, takes them out of the political scene. And I want to say that if you look at what that has done to Kalonzo Musyoka, it has reduced his political, he might be a kingpin, but it has reduced his political bargaining platform, that the extent to which he can bargain for any political arrangement has significantly been reduced. Dismas has also talked about Raila, and if you have Raila reduced, Kalonzo reduced, who remains standing? It is the deputy president, and that's the basis upon which I say that the deputy president is the front runner. But then secondly, you look at the reason why the president has done all this, and I've always said this, that it is in the interest of Kenyans, whether we see it or not, that appointing all these people is to create a political environment, get them off the noise that would destabilize this country, and help the president achieve his Big Four agenda. And I think if he manages to do that by having Kalonzo do shuttle diplomacy that will bring enough resources to fund the Big Four, well and good. If he manages to do that by having the Right Honorable Raila Odinga as the head of infrastructural development at the African Union, support one of the Big Four in Kenya, well and good for Kenyans, but who is likely to benefit from the achievements of the Big Four? I mean, the answer is obvious. So I think to a large extent, I appreciate what Kalonzo has done for himself, but I think I detest what it has done to his political ambitions, because it has definitely brought his political clout to a level that is equivalent to Ababu Namwamba, who is also a chief administrative secretary, reporting to CS Monica Juma.
Kipchumba?
One question which we might want to ask ourselves as we interact with whatever Kalonzo has been given as a token is, are we a democracy or what are we? Because in a democracy, we know when you are beaten in an election, you go home, you go there, attend to your grandchildren and do other things. But back to the main discussion of Kalonzo Musyoka, I am, as a person, opposed to the issue of resurrecting political rejects through public offices. I am opposed because Kenyans have interacted with the name Kalonzo Musyoka in the ballot twice and rejected him. It is not news. Why are you forcing Kenyans to raise money through their taxes and pay a reject? That's the other question. Does it mean that Kenyans, for a long time, the youths and the people who are working at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, there is nobody in the last 30 years who has grasped issues to do with South Sudan, who can represent us there as a professional? Whether Kalonzo Musyoka has been a cabinet secretary for foreign affairs for life or not, what has he achieved that we can look back and say, Kalonzo, you have brought this policy which helped Kenyans secure an international recognition? Nothing. The other point that we must look at, we must ask ourselves, apart from our politician being career politician, what are they? Look at Tony Blair. He left being a prime minister of the UK. He's doing serious things. He's changing the world through his talks and everything. But look at our politicians. Kalonzo Musyoka is out of political circulation for 2 terms. Look at what is happening. We have not seen him in Sekuru having a serious demonstration farm, telling Kenyans, when I was a cabinet secretary for foreign affairs, I went to US, I went to Israel, these are the things I saw changing lives. We must now begin to ask ourselves, and this should serve as a lesson to the young politicians, that as a politician, politics is not a career. You must have something else so that you can do. But one positive that we must give to Kalonzo, in the last couple of days and events, is the only politician worth his metal who has had the chance to bring up his child. He's doing his family succession in a very nice manner. Everywhere he's going, you are able to see his son, Kennedy Kalonzo, the Yala member of parliament there. And I think Raila is copying the same by taking along his daughter in those
so the alternative route Mark is talking about then might even take longer.
He's saying the alternative is the children of failures. That is very dangerous. Let's understand what alternative means for this country. The alternative, what it means for this country is for voters. to literally sit down and consider the people who got 10,000 votes for MP, the people who ran on principles and got 30,000 votes in 2013. That is what we need to begin to think of as a country. Without doing that, let's just expect more of the same until we die.
Yusuf,
I think that's a clear
as
message.
parting shot, we must also say in terms of protocol, Kalonzo Musyoka reports to Ababu Namwamba, not Monica Juma. In clear protocol.
Interesting observation. Many thanks for your input. Dismiss Mokua Mark Bichachi, Hezbon Owila, as well as Wakilia Kipchumba Korori. And that brings us to the end of our program today. Many thanks for watching. Let me just go through a few of your feedback here. Tobunga Apamo says, Kalonzo's move was very predictable. Bendera Ufuata Upepo opposition is in the hands of Mudavadi now. And then at Don Sabwa says, Hezbon Hansen, we need Professor Kibwana to pick that space on Ukambani now. Governor Kibwana, please stand out. Let me just take one more here. At Engineer Masisa Vincent, chose to talk about the maize issue. He says that the farmers want the parameters that were used to arrive at formula of paying them 2,300 shillings. Yet the previous year, they had been paid 3,200 Kenyan shillings. Why the drastic fall in price? Farmers are being taken for a ride. There is mischief. And once again, if you need to read about the fresh maize scandal, I must say, about the 4.4 million bags that may just find its way on your table, please grab yourself a copy of the Sunday Standard. You're going to get much more detail on this story. Many thanks for watching. My name is Yusuf Ibrahim. Now I'll leave you with some of the pictorials in memory of the late Mutinda Kavemba, who has been a regular contributor to the Sunday edition. The late Kavemba passed on last week after